Today's topic on Connecticut Yankee Sanity is global warming. Scientists estimate that the percentage of carbon dioxide in the air at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution was 270 parts per million. Now, 2.5 centuries later, it has risen 50% to 407 parts per million, the equivalent of adding 137 people to the million inhabitants of San Jose, California. The average global temperature, meanwhile, has risen by 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Both trends are attributed to burning fossil fuels, and both appear to be accelerating. To me, it doesn't seem particularly alarming. I'll pause briefly for the climate change faithful to pick themselves up off the floor. Okay. Since the beginning of creation, we've had periods of alternating warmth and cold. The Laurentide ice sheet, for example, covered large expanses of New England as recently as 20,000 years ago, which in geological time is like yesterday. Global warming 2,000 years later, a geological blink of the eye, melted it. So why all the uproar now? Because at the beginning of creation, and follow me closely here, we didn't have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Al Gore to exhort us to roll back temperatures to the days of the Coolidge administration. Our politicians have extrapolated from the latest CO2 readings that Midtown Manhattan will look like Venice and Venice like the lost city of Atlantis. Other predictions include floods, killer hurricanes, drought, shriveled up crops, famine, and lousy skiing in Vermont. It's enough to scare the pants off you. For the politicians, though, the issue is manna from an overheated heaven. How likely is any of this to happen? It's evidently true that mankind is at least partly responsible for the rise in global temperature, but scientists disagree on the data and its interpretation. 31,000 of them signed the Oregon Institute of Science and Medicine petition questioning global warming and its potential impact. Why? Well, although meteorologists can predict with some accuracy that a snowstorm will arrive in, say, 5 days, tomorrow's predicted rainstorm may not arrive at all. Data gathered by climatologists have nevertheless been used to predict weather 100 years into the future. 4 separate entities around the world track global temperatures, but their methodologies vary and the readings don't coincide. To reconcile the differences, they employ computer modeling, so things work out according to what they believe the true result ought to be. Our politicians accept the data just as the computer spits it out and use it selectively, warning only of possible negative effects. Benefits to plant life, the evidence of which has been observed, don't make the headlines. In an overpopulated world facing food shortages, healthier plants ought to be a blessing. Instead, we're told that more robust asparagus is just so much baloney. The stalks will collapse from heat prostration the instant they sprout. We hear, too, of old folks who will gasp their last, but not a peep about reduced mortality attributed to the cold in northern climates. The burning of fossil fuels, which appalls Miss Cortez, except when she's jetting from New York to Washington, will be reduced too, since we won't have to turn up the thermostat so much. As for the devastating economic effects on advanced industrial societies of a radical reduction in burning fossil fuels, well, there's an inconvenient truth best left for later. It's absurd to think that a puny handful of politicians can alter the global climate at will. The reason they want us to panic over imminent heat-induced catastrophe is that such a fantastic project cannot move forward without government regulation. Laws need to be passed. Monitoring and enforcement agencies have to be put in place. It's a simply gorgeous bureaucratic jobs creation program, which may be why our politicians chant global warming as if their careers depended upon it. When President Trump withdrew us from the Paris Climate Accord, half the country went berserk. I wouldn't be surprised if their reaction didn't raise the global temperature a degree all by itself. Our harebrained president was endangering the entire planet. But no worries. Miss Cortez hurried to the rescue with her Green New Deal. Its zanier elements were quickly debunked by the few commentators whose brains continued to function despite the heat, but she may have been right about one thing. With the world's human population ticking past 7 billion and the planet about to dissolve into steam, her suggestion not to have kids is worth considering. We inhale oxygen, but we exhale carbon dioxide. Thus, simply breathing, we're all carbon dioxide Bigfoots. And that's not factoring in the hot air generated by politicians like AOC. Fewer of us, and them, would certainly be a help. Critics of the Oregon Petition, as it's called, complain that few of the signers were climatologists. What? You're not a climatologist? You can't question climate change? Yes, but the politicians flogging the issue aren't climatologists either. Well, never mind that. All of the signers of the Oregon Petition were scientists and therefore competent to make judgments about scientific methodology. The late C.P. Snow, a PhD physicist, wrote, quote, "If false statements are to be allowed, science will lose its one virtue, truth. The only ethical principle that has made science possible is that the truth shall be told all the time. If we do not penalize false statements in error, we open up the way for false statements by intention." Unquote. Without questioning our scientific integrity, I merely observe that much remains unknown. We have some knowledge, but not complete knowledge. Speculation based on incomplete knowledge or sophisticated guesswork should therefore be received as theory, not fact. I admit that more bureaucrats dedicated to a theoretical project, without a snowball's chance in global warming hell of succeeding, leaves me cold. Sure, we could give up on technology and industry here in the United States and revert to a purely agrarian 18th century economy. But with the Chinese, who account for a fifth of the world's population, buying cars, chugging around in pre-World War II coal-fired steam locomotives, and hacking down their forests for chopsticks, what can we really hope to accomplish? Al Gore and his acolytes can preach global warming to them until blue in the face, and, well, you get the idea. Will the planet become uninhabitable in 50 years' time, or 100 because of global warming? It seems unlikely. There's another, more immediate and more terrifying danger. There are 14,000 nuclear weapons in existence today. I hear very little about them from the politicians fretting that the world will go to smash because the temperature has risen 2 degrees. Addressing the threat of nuclear holocaust apparently offers fewer opportunities for grandstanding about saving the planet. But if we care so much about our planet and the future of mankind, wouldn't cooling down Mr. Kim's and the mullah's nuclear ambitions make more sense? There, as Mr. Trump is demonstrating, we at least have a chance of succeeding. Thanks for watching. Please take a minute to click like and to subscribe, and share the link with your friends. We'll see you next time when the topic will be illegals.